Hi, welcome back to Crates with Zed. Today, I'm going to give my best overview of the Bone Chilling Bonanza case, focusing on the expected value of the case, which is going to tell us if it's worthwhile to open. This case is going to cost about 1 key to open, maybe a little more depending on how you're acquiring the Bone Chilling Bonanza key, but for simplicity, I'm going to call it 1 key. How much value should we expect to get from the items we open from this case? Let's break it down by each item we can find in the crate. First, we'll break down the items into the different grades. When you open this case, you'll always get an item belonging to a grade as the main item. The rarest grade is the Elite grade, 1%. Then we have the Assassin's grade, 4%. Third is the Commando grade at 15%. And finally, the most common grade is Mercenary at 85%. Each grade has several items that you can receive. Within each grade, each item is equally likely. You can see the individual probability of each item within a grade. For example, each Elite grade item has an individual 0.50% chance. Each Assassin's grade is at 0.66%, each Commando is at 1.87%, and each Mercenary grade item has an 8% chance. Let's look at how much each item is worth. You can see the Elite and Assassin grade items are worth the most, likely due to how rare they are. There's a couple Commando and Mercenary grade items that have value too, like the Stunt Suit, Dead Heat, and Shortness of Breath. Despite being more common, these likely have more demand due to their desirable appearances. Sorting these items for the best value, you can see the items that you're probably looking most forward to opening when you unbox this crate. The best item is the Clown's Cover-Up at 6.59 keys, followed by Demonic Dome at 2.97 keys, then Power Spike at 2.01 keys, and the Last Laugh at 1.91 keys. Bare Bones is at 1.40 keys, Mad Lad is at 1.26 keys, and Sightseer is at 0.64 keys. Finally, Stunt Suit is at 0.37 keys, while both Shortness of Breath and Dead Heat are at 0.28 keys. How can we tell which items are providing the most value in an average opening though? Some items are pretty rare and very valuable, while some are more common and less valuable. Which of these items are actually adding most to the overall value? We can find out using expected value. Let's say there's 2 crates that each cost a key to open. These crates have items with different probabilities and values in them. If you open the first crate, you have a 50% chance at getting your key back, a 40% chance at getting 0 keys back, and a 10% chance at getting a whopping 10 keys. When you open the second crate though, you have an 80% chance at getting 1 key, 10% at 2 keys, and a 10% at 0 keys. How do we compare these 2 crates together? Let's say we're planning on opening 100 of each crate. How do we compare these to see which crate on average is better to open? We find out using expected value. To find it, we multiply the likelihood by the value together. So 50% of 1 key is half a key. 40% of nothing is still nothing. 10% of 10 keys is 1 key. So our total value ends up being 1.5 keys. If we look at the second crate, we have an 80% chance at 1 key. So you multiply those together. 80% of 1 is 0.8 keys. 10% of 2 keys is 0.2 keys. And 10% of nothing is still nothing. Our total value for the second crate ends up being 1 key. Now, if we subtract the original keys we used to open each crate, we find that the first crate is better. We get an expected profit of 0.5 keys, and the second one has an expected profit of nothing. We just break even every time. Keep in mind that expected value is working on averages. If you're using expected value, you want to be opening up lots of crates. You want to be having a large sample size. The larger your sample size, the closer you're going to be to these averages. If you're only opening a few, let's say you open 3 of the first crate and you hit that 40% chance 3 times in a row, you're going to walk away with 0 keys, even though the expected profit was 0.5 keys. Expected profit isn't guaranteed profit, and even when you open hundreds of these crates, it's still not guaranteed. However, expected value is going to work for us for comparing different crates to each other. If we're going to open 100 of any crate, let's make it the crate that has the best expected value and thus the best expected profit. So, back to our best items in the case. We have the likelihoods. For example, the Clown's cover-up's at 0.66, and its value is at 6.59. We can multiply these together to get the expected value. So here, we get to see how much value each item in our crate is contributing. Clown's cover-up was an obvious one. It's worth a lot, and even though it's rare, it's still, going to contribute here. A surprising one is Shortness of Breath. It's contributing 1.83%. That's because it is worth a moderate amount, and it's quite common. So it's going to be contributing more value than, say, the Power Spike or Sightseer, or even the Demonic Dome at 1.23%. The rest of the items here are contributing anywhere from 0.8 to 0.4%, and it goes all the way down to 0.26%. It's a bit surprising to see at the bottom here that all the Commando Grade items are here. While they are worth a bit, they are quite unlikely. So they're not contributing very much value other than, the Stunt Suit and Dead Heat over here. So let's collect those expected values together and compare it to our cost. So our cost was 1 key, and all of these expected values together make up 0.18 keys. So if we were to open up the crate right now and we were only getting those items, we'd be losing out on 0.82 keys every time we opened it. Would not be a good deal. However, we still have lots of other items to look at here, and if we can find expected value that fills up this dotted line and then some, that means we have a crate that's profitable and it's one that we want to be opening. So let's keep going and see if this crate is profitable. So we covered each of the grades, the Elite, Assassin, Commando, and Mercenary, but I intentionally ignored the quality of each item. The items we covered so far were the Unique quality, which doesn't really have any special features. However, your items can get upgraded to be Strange, or Unusual, or both. The Rarest quality is a Strange Unusual. You're going to see it on your item about 0.10% of the time. Strange Unusual items are the most valuable items you can hope to open from any case. Strange items track your kills, points, or other stats, and Unusuals get those rare cosmetic effects on top of them. So combined, makes a super valuable item. The second rarest quality is just an Unusual, not Strange. You're going to see it 0.56% of the time. If we combine this with the Strange Unusuals, we have a overall percentage of 0.66% to get an Unusual. One of the more common qualities is Strange. Those are the ones that track the points or kills or assists or whatever. You've got a 14.9% chance that your item is just Strange. If you combine that with the Stranges that are in the Strange Unusuals, that's a total overall percentage of 15%. Finally, the items we already talked about are the Unique quality items. They make up about 84% of the items you unbox, and they don't have anything special about them. In normal crates, the items you pull out would be unique, unless the crate says otherwise. In these cases, they have these grades on them, so they'll get colored like the colors of the grades, and they won't have that unique yellow color. Let's focus on just the Strange items. So this is the 14.9% of Strange items, and not the Strange Unusual items. So let's modify the values and probabilities we had from our normal items and convert them into Strange items. So here you'll see the chance of each item has decreased. The Elites and Assassins, you can barely see the probabilities anymore. Commando is pretty slim, and Mercenary is still pretty rare. Some of these values have increased dramatically, like the Strange Clown's cover-up has jumped up to 16.54 keys just by being Strange. Let's sort them by the best ones. Yeah, Clown's cover-up is at the top, followed by the rest of the Strange Elite and Strange Assassin items. Hanging out at the bottom is the Strange Dead Heat, and then the rest under 1 key are on the right, the rest of the Commando and Mercenary items. These items will be at a higher price, but they're also at a higher rarity. So let's calculate to see what the expected value is, so we can actually process how much value each of these items is bringing. So yep, Clown's cover-up is up there again, followed by Shortness of Breath, just like we saw before. The rest of the Elite and Assassin grade items are here. Surprising to see Strange Mean Captain up there as well. It's an all-class item, it's a great cosmetic, and its value combined with its likelihood means that it's contributing 0.28% of a key expected value. Let's collect them again. We have 0.08 keys combined together here. That's what the Stranges are contributing. Still got a long way to go. So far we've got 0.26 keys of value, not nearly enough to consider us putting this. Let's look at the Unusuals. They're quite unlikely to unbox, but they're quite valuable, so they're going to contribute a decent chunk of value to our crate. You might think that each item in each grade can be unusual, but only certain cosmetics can be. Let's look at which items can actually be unusual. So both of the elite items can be unusual. Only Power Spike and Sightseer can be unusual in the Assassin's grade. Out of the 8 Commando grade items, only Dell Dynamic is eligible to be unusual. And finally, 4 of the Mercenary hats can be unusual. Ludicrously Lunatic Lunin Fedora, the main captain, Splitting Headache, Thunderdome. But, oh no! Look at all of these probabilities up here. Are we going to lose out on getting unusuals when it could have been one of these items? Thankfully, we're not out. The items that were eligible to be unusual pick up the slack and share the probabilities that the other items lost out on. This means that each grade still has the same overall probability though, with Elite at 1%, Assassin at 4%, Commando at 15%, and Mercenary at 85%. Let's move these back beside each item. Note that Dell Dynamic in the Commando grade is much more likely of an unusual than you'd expect for a Commando grade item. Its likelihood looks more like one of these Mercenary grade items than the Sightseer. Here, I grabbed the values from the Steam Community Market and added it to each item. I took the lowest sell order of any unusual effects for that item. This is going to be a bit of an underestimate, especially since some effects are more rare than others, so those rare effects would be worth much more. For the purposes of expected value, I'm happier using one of these lower values. I'm just using this as a rough calculation. I'm not using this as a trusted value. If you get an unusual Bare Bones, no one's saying it has to be 124 keys. These items are rare, and each effect is going to be a different price. When more of these get opened, I can try to do a better calculation, but for now this is going to do for our expected value calculation. When we look at the likelihoods and the values, we can see how rare some of these items actually are. Something like unusual Bare Bones is a 0.003 chance, but it is commanding a 124 key value. Unusual Demonic Dome is just as rare, but it has 224 keys of value. Power Spike and Sightseer are the next notable unusuals. Each is at 0.009% and holding a value of 95 and 46 keys respectively. A unusual Dell Dynamic is at 0.077% and its value is at 10.29 keys. Can sort these by the best items again. The only surprising result is the Dell Dynamic, which is coming in between the Mercenary grade items. Surprising to see the Mean Captain shoot up so much. I mean, it is an all-class unusual, so it's going to be worth a lot, but surprising to see it 4 times as much as the other ones in the same tier. Anyways, let's do the expected value dance again and see how much each one contributes. Wow, the Mean Captain takes up 5.29% of a key of value, 3 times the value of any of these other ones. The Fedora, Splitting Headache, and Thunderdome are about 1%. Same with the Power Spike and Demonic Dome, about 1%. The Dell Dynamics at 0.8, the Unusual Sightseer is at 0.6, and Unusual Bare Bones all the way down at 0.5. So when we collect them back on our expected value slide, we see they've got a value of 0.13 keys for unusuals. Let's check out the rarest one, the Strange Unusual, just showing up in 0.1% of cases. This one's rare enough that you could choose to ignore it if you'd like. If you're risk adverse, you might not want to depend on the expected value from these. We take our unusual probabilities and shrink them down to the Strange Unusual item size. They're much rarer, but they're much more valuable. We see some pretty absurd values. The Strange Bare Bones and Demonic Dome each around 250 keys, and the Strange Unusual Mean Captain at 756 keys. Now, keep in mind, I'm taking these prices from the Steam Community Market. Something like the Strange Unusual Mean Captain only has 1 listing, and I think it was one of the rarer effects. So, just because you open one doesn't mean you're going to get the 756 keys for it. That being said, these items are super duper rare, so you might be the only one with that effect and hat in existence. So the price is whatever someone's willing to pay at that point. Regardless, when these items are that rare, it's going to get really hard to establish a value for them. I'm sure years from now, all of these will have a value on backpack.tf, but for now, I'm just rocking off the lowest sell price on the Steam community market. Nonetheless, we're still going to try to calculate the expected values. The Strange Unusual Meme Captain is going to hold a lot of expected value here, worth 0.154 keys. The rest holds some expected value, but look at the Elite and Assassin items over here. They're contributing quite little considering how rare they actually are. Remember, these two were worth like 250 keys, but because of how rare they are, they barely contribute to the overall value of the case. Let's collect them up again. And the Strange Unusuals are worth 0.21 keys, more than any other category. Remember, my prices are a little bit iffy here. You might want to run your own calculations with whatever you consider those prices to be. Regardless, that's a lot of value tied up in a 0.1% chance. In addition to the normal item you receive in the case, you can receive a few bonus items. One kind of bonus item is the Halloween bonus item. These bonus items are unique to this case. You have a 25% chance to get a Halloween bonus item, and each one's equally likely, so that ends up being an effective 6.25% for each item. None of them are really worth much of anything though, so it contributes a value of less than 0.01 keys on our expected value chart here. Let's keep going. In this case, and really any other case, you're going to get a bonus item some of the time. I won't dive deep into each category here, but if you are interested in learning more about bonus items, I could do another video like this just on those. If you're interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments. I'm totally up for making a video like that. I should also say these probabilities are just sourced from some random Reddit post somewhere. They're not official in any sense. Valve hasn't published the official rates. They'll do well enough for what I want out of an expected value calculation. Another thing is you can get multiple bonus items in a single case. I'm personally not sure which items share a slot. For example, I don't think you can get a name tag and a description tag in the same case opening. I think you get one or the other if you get that as a bonus. But you can get multiple, like you can get a paint and a strange part in the same case. For the purposes of our expected value calculation though, these probabilities don't depend on each other. I'm just taking it from, someone opened 1,000 cases and this is how many they got out of those 1,000, so it's going to work for our average calculation here. So the unusual fire shows up 1.86% of the time, and it's worth the most here. It's like a mini unusual. This item lets you add an unusual effect to a taunt. Here I'm just using the average unusual fire price at 8.38 keys. This is an average of the 90 plus taunt unusual fires that are in the game, but it does vary quite a bit, especially if you get one of the new Halloween unusual effects. The next item you can get is a strange part. These have wildly different values. Some are worth nothing, some are worth 6 or more keys. I recommend checking each one you get, but on average it's taking up 1.61 keys of value. You're going to see that about 2% of the time. Paint's the next valuable one. You see it 5% of the time, and it's worth 0.73 keys. Again, some paint's not worth a lot, some paint's worth several keys, so check them all. The Backpack Expander and Tour of Duty ticket is some nice steady value. The Backpack Expander shows up 2.44% of the time, Tour of Duty ticket shows up 6.81. They're both about half a key. These are worth trading away if you're not going to use them. You get 2 of these bonuses, you get a free crate opening. The last one I'm going to talk about is the name tag. It's worth 1/4 of a key, but it only shows up 1.45% of the time. The rest of the items aren't common, nor are they valuable, so I'll skip over them. They'll still contribute to the expected value here. When we collect them, I ran out of room here, so I just squished it in at the top here. These bonus items are actually worth more than the unique and strange items combined. They're giving an expected value of 0.28 keys. There is still a lot of wasted space in here though, so if I squish them all together, we can get a final number. We can see that's at 0.90 keys. So all this wasted space on the side here is value you're missing out on. Your 1 key, 10% of it gets turned to nothing, and 90% of it gets turned into some valuable item. So we're a little short. You're losing out when you open this. And remember, 0.21 keys are tied up in this strange unusual. If you're not getting a strange unusual, it only shows up 0.1% of the time. Your expected value is more like 0.7 keys. So if you open 100 of these cases, you miss out on that strange unusual, you're only going to end up with 70 keys of value. You are taking a gamble when you're reaching for these strange unusuals. I'm personally not comfortable with counting on getting a strange unusual. I recommend that you don't just trust what I've put in this video. I think you should go look up the prices yourself and use your own values to calculate the expected value of your own crates. I've got a template spreadsheet in the description if you'd like to enter your own prices for this Halloween case, but you can modify it to work with any crate or case, really. If you want to see more than 400 of these cases opened, I'll link my Halloween cases playlist at the top right here. I've opened up 25 myself, and I've reacted to others opening a combined 400 cases. Check it out just so you can get a sense of what opening these crates feels like before you dive in and open up a bunch. On average though, you are losing every time you open up one of these cases. Trying to make money off of a case like this isn't going to work a majority of the time. Gambling can be entertaining, but it comes at a price. If the excitement you get from opening up new cases is worth, the value you're missing out on here, if you think you're getting 0.1 keys of value just from the fun of opening stuff, then hey, go for it. Just remember to open these responsibly. If you're someone who struggles with gambling or addiction, please consider reaching out to someone in your personal support network. There's plenty of people out here in this world who care about you, and you don't need to open up a shiny hat to prove you're worth something. You are already enough. Now, I have done a lot of crate openings on my channel. If you are someone who enjoys taking chances on stuff like crates, I think you should be taking the best chances. I keep track of all the crates and cases in the game, and I try to feature the ones that are the most valuable. If that's something that interests you, take a look at some of the other videos on my channel. Featured several crates that are worth more than it costs to open, and they may be something you want to consider opening yourself. I also keep track of my profit along the way, and I use some pretty cool overlays so that you can visualize what we've opened and how that compares to our expected value. And remember that my advice here isn't financial advice. I'm not offering any guarantee that you're going to get an unusual when you open the case. I source my probability data from the TF2 wiki and from community discussions online. One modification I do like to make is the wiki says that unusuals are 1%, but they are closer to like 0.66%. So I like to estimate conservatively there. The prices I use in my video comes from the prices.tf API, which does a pretty good job of keeping track of up-to-date prices. For some of the rare items like the unusuals, I'm using the Steam community market data through a site called steamapis.com. The prices I pulled for my video were from October 23rd. And while the prices are pretty stable now that the Halloween event's a couple weeks in, some of these prices could have changed by the time the video comes out. I highly recommend using my template in the description and entering in the values that you think are correct. You don't have to take the unusuals that I scraped off of some APIs as the trusted value here. Yeah, that's all I've got for today. I hope you liked my PowerPoint animations and calculations. I hope it helps you make an informed choice about what you're opening this Halloween. If you do open up some of these cases, I'd love to hear about how you've done with it. If you've been keeping track of your items opened, I love hearing about data, and especially love hearing about shiny unusuals. So yeah, feel free to hang out on my comments. I read every single one of them. Take care of yourself. Take some time to rest. And that's all. Take care. Bye.